Is building up its forces right near Gaza. We know soldiers are being brought in. We know tanks. We know artillery. There's also this evacuation order now for 1 million plus civilians to get out of northern Gaza. What might we see in the coming days? Let's bring in Glenn Ignazio. He's a military expert, retired Air Force commander. He's in Scottsdale, Arizona. He's been with us throughout much of the week, giving us his insights, his take on what we're seeing play out. Glenn, always good to have you, and good to have you back today.
Thank you, Todd. It's great to see you as well.
So day 7 of this conflict, this evacuation order, 1 million plus people. You have to get out of northern Gaza. You've got 24 hours to do it. We don't know exactly when that deadline will hit. It might be midnight tonight. We're seeing it's currently 7:30 in the evening local time. Your thoughts on what that might mean?
Yeah, it's first of all, moving that many people within 24 hours is an incredible task. I'm not sure if that's going to be even plausible. Well, the other thing is Hamas is also saying and holding people back. So it becomes a heck of a quandary where you got some people that want to leave, some people that don't, and some that are not able because of what Hamas is doing. The hard part is where they're actually going to go. You know, outside of the city to the north and south, there's more land there. And I believe that's where they're trying to push people. But if you're not mobile, if you're elderly or injured or even children, it's going to be very tough to get out of that city, especially after some major airstrikes. It is a big, tall order.
Yeah, we have a map that we're going to bring up in a moment, Glenn, as you and I are talking. Again, just to give our viewers across our country a sense of what the geography looks like here. We've got the Gaza Strip there. We see Gaza City to the north and Khan Yunis to the south, two big population centers. Everything in yellow are urban areas, by the way. The Gaza Strip, quite a small area of territory. And, there's more than 2 million people that live there. So an operation in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, we sort of see what we're talking about here. The buildup going on. I'm curious what sort of preparations Israel would have to do, because they've got to realize that, going in there is going to put their own soldiers at extreme risk.
Yeah, absolutely. So, they completely secured the Gaza area. And as we talked about, excuse me, it's about 25 miles north and south and about 6 miles wide at that widest part you saw. But in the very north and south, there's some fields and farmland that are fairly open before you get in that dense city area, which you see a lot on TV. In addition, around Gaza itself, there's also about a quarter mile of a gap area that is open, and that's one of the areas that is also secure. So Israel has completely blockaded Gaza. So the idea of getting people out of the city, that's the biggest concern for a variety of different reasons. One, because they're going to hit the city with airstrikes, which they have been doing. They want to minimize the collateral, and they want to be able to go in and take on Hamas directly. It reminds me of what we did in Fallujah in Iraq, if people remember that. We told the civilians to leave, and we went into Fallujah battling the insurgents. It's sort of the same tactic they're doing to reduce the collateral damage as much as possible.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview with a spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Forces, and he said, look, here's the deal. We didn't start this. We're trying to minimize civilian casualties. We're trying to protect people who are themselves prisoners of Hamas as well in the Gaza Strip, which is largely controlled. They control the Gaza Strip, and the Palestinian people who live there are under their rule. But, we've got to root out Hamas and its leadership. And so we're giving them a warning to get out. Otherwise, they may find themselves right in the middle of the crossfire, literally, Glenn.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like you said, we're seeing some of the reports from Hamas is not allowing people to leave.
Right.
And again, that's the tactic about the human shields, not just of the hostages that they've taken, but also of their own people. And we mentioned a little bit the other day about the information warfare as important and as impactful as the kinetic actually putting weapons on target, is that the longer that this takes, the more suffering you see of the civilian populace and the injuries of kids and so forth from the airstrikes, the more that this is going to sway against Israel, and they're going to forget very quickly about how barbaric the terrorist attack was. And they're going to start skewing the sentiment globally to see that there's people suffering within Gaza. So the longer this goes on, the worse I believe it is for Israel, because Hamas is doing a really good job in the information warfare game to definitely slice and split, the sentiment around the world.
Yeah, what's the biggest challenge, do you think, for Israel right now, Glenn, 7 days into this?
I think the biggest challenge is trying to basically eliminate Hamas, because that's really the intent, without impacting the civilian populace as bad as it's been impacted. I mean, you have to think about this. There's about 25,000 Hamas troops, lack for a better term, in Gaza. And the civilian population is fairly young. About half of that, 2 million is a lot of kids. Is that you may take out Hamas now, but if you're injuring and causing suffering and undue damage to other people, you're creating terrorists for tomorrow. And I think that's the crazy thing that people may not think of is you have Hamas today, you may destroy them, but all of this suffering, all this damage, and all of this impact to children, you are creating a terrorism for tomorrow. And that's something that really needs to be taken in consideration. So suffering has to be kept to a minimum or nothing at all if possible.
Yeah, just a series of bad to worse options here. How do you conduct some sort of ground operation when you've got 2 million civilians?
Well, it's an impossible, I would say it's impossible. It's an incredible challenge for Israel because one, you have that ground order battle that they're going in case. You have small areas and streets within some of those tight confined areas within the city. So some of the tanks and armor can't get through there. So they're going to have to use dismounted troops, which is basically soldiers on the ground going step by step. You have a 360 fight. So in front of you, behind you, to the left and the right. And the reason for this is you have the buildings that they can be in shooting down. You have the ground battle that most people are used to seeing on TV. And you also have the tunnels underneath, which are probably not mapped very well. And the last thing you want to do is move to an area and then all of a sudden your enemy pops up behind you. So this is a challenging, dangerous, deadly, dirty, and it's going to have to be done very slowly and methodical. So it is a big task. And unfortunately, a lot of people are going to be lost on both sides.
Some excellent insights as always, Glenn. Thanks so much for taking some time once again for CTV News up here in Canada.
Absolutely. Thank you, Todd, and take care of yourself.
Glenn Ignazio, military expert, formerly with the U.S. Air Force in Scottsdale, Arizona.